Real estate is very much a relationship business, and we can think about building our relationships in the real world or increasingly building them virtually. So, why don't you tell us about what's important when it comes to optimizing your most important relationships, not just in real estate investing, but also outside of that in one's life overall?
There's a philosophy that I adopted a long time ago, and it was stop worrying about trying to impress people and instead just focus on how you can add value to their lives. And I think growing up, right, we're conditioned to want to impress other people. We want to look good, and it doesn't really go away. We just become big overgrown kids, right? We're still worrying what other people think of us and trying to look good for them and impress them. And sometimes that means embellishing a little bit to try to, to appear as more than we are. And I found that what people are attracted to is the humanity in other people. So for me, there's really two rules to relationships. One is authenticity, and the second is value add, or adding value. So in other words, give up trying to be perfect for being authentic. Right. So instead of trying to impress people, focus on how you can just be yourself, add value to their lives. And that's the second piece, is the adding of value, is that the more value you add for another human being, the more valuable you become. And so for me, that's inquiry. It's what's important to this person, finding out what matters to them, whether it's family or real estate or, a charity, whatever is important to them, and then finding ways that I can add value. But for me, it's a mindset where most of us are conditioned to want to get the most out of every situation. And I'm talking about flipping that. And you go, how can I give the most into every situation? And when you're trying to get the most out of every situation, it's stressful. You're making sure, am I getting my share? But when you give the most, it's liberating. When you're trying to give the most, add the most value that you can. So to me, that's the two things. Stop trying to impress people. Just be yourself, be authentic, and focus on adding as much value to their life as you possibly can.
When you give, oftentimes that person that you've given to feels a sense of reciprocation. And if you don't feel that back a couple times, maybe you start wondering whether or not that's a relationship worth building or not. But people are liked when that other person feels some authenticity, to your point, Hal. And, I think oftentimes, yes, we do try to impress people. I think we all have egos. Some are just bigger than others. So I think when it comes to building relationships with people, being professional, that's great and that's good in some contexts, but really I think being relatable is more important in relationship building.
Totally. And you don't want to be a whiny, you don't want, when it comes to being authentic or being vulnerable. And those are two synonyms to me, being authentic, being vulnerable. There's a great quote from Robin Sharma, best-selling author. He said, when you're vulnerable with people, they fall in love with you. When you're vulnerable to people, they fall in love with you, right? And that's the thing, is when you're trying to impress someone, unless they're a moron, they can sense that, right? Like they pick up on that, and it's usually a turnoff. But if you're just completely authentic, completely yourself, you're not trying to impress them, you're just being who you are. And let me share an important distinction between worrying what people think about you and caring about what people think about you, because there's a subtle distinction, but the impact's very, very significant. So worrying what other people think of you is coming from a place of fear, right? Fear that I'm not good enough, fear that they're not going to like me, fear that the relationship's not going to develop the way I want it to. And when you worry, when you come from a place of fear, it creates insecurity, it creates stress, it hurts your self-confidence. You're worrying, you're coming from a place of fear. Caring what other people think of you, on the other hand, is coming from a place of love. It prompts you to be kind and thoughtful and considerate and generous. So while it might seem like a subtle difference, because both of them, you're thinking of the other person and what they think of you, right? But worrying is coming from a place of fear. Caring is from a place of love. And again, the difference it makes, the impact, is stress, fear, and insecurity versus thoughtfulness, kindness, generosity. And so, yes, you should care about your relationships, but come from a place of love when you're looking at how you can add value to that person's life. Not afraid they won't like you, but simply caring about how can you make their life better. And if that's where you're coming from, you can't help but develop great relationships.
It's so interesting that you say this, Hal. I think a common saying that one sees out there is, you shouldn't care about what other people think. You really shouldn't care. I think people really do care. For some reason, they're afraid to say that and actually be vulnerable, to your point. I think you should care about what other people think of you because that's your reputation.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, it's interesting. When I was probably about 25 years old, I got inspired one night. I was really focused on my personal growth and reflection and introspection. And I got inspired one night and I emailed roughly 20, I think it was 23, just because that was my favorite number back in the day because of Michael Jordan. I emailed 23 people and asked them for critical feedback on me. And I emailed those that were really close to me, like my mom and dad and my sister, my family. I emailed my colleagues. I emailed my close friends. I also emailed, though, upper management in my company, people that, that I didn't have good relationships with. I also emailed ex-girlfriends, believe it or not. I thought they would shoot me straight, right? And in the email, I said, look, I want to grow and I know I have blind spots. I know there are things you see about me that I don't see about myself. And so I need your feedback in order to grow. And so you won't hurt my feelings. Please be completely honest. And I said, and if you want to tell me things you like about me to feel balanced, that's okay, right? And funny part is it definitely hurt my feelings. I thought that it would. Yeah, I thought it was fine with it, but I was like, because here's what happened. I would read things and I would go, that's not true. That's not me. Right. But here's what I found. And this is really to capitalize or follow up on what you said about caring what other people think. I don't know about you, but I think it's true for all of us. We want to be known for who we are. And I have certain values, as most of us do. We all have things that we value, right? If you value your integrity, or you value your honesty, or you value that you're a thoughtful person. And then if the feedback you get from people, if they see you as, I feel like you're not a good listener, you're totally self-absorbed, all you care about is yourself, right? Like that type of feedback. If that's not in alignment with how you view yourself. So at first I got really defensive and I went, obviously they don't know me if they think that.
Right. But
then here's what I realized. I got more introspective and I went, wait a minute. If they see me that way, that means I'm not portraying I'm not living in alignment with my values, because I see that I care about other people, but their interactions with me are not in alignment with that. So it was a huge, and I encourage everybody to do this. In fact, in my book, The Miracle Morning, this is the bonus chapter. It's called The Email That Will Change Your Life. And I actually put the word for word email in that book so that people could copy, paste it, and, as a template to send that email out to their friends and family. And I've received, of course, many emails from people telling me that was a scary email to send, but that it was once they hit send and got the feedback, it was transformative, right? Anyway, the point is that, it is important that other people and what they think of us is feedback. It's a reflection of how we are showing up in the world. And I would say for all of us, we want to show up in alignment with who we see ourselves to be and how we want to be perceived by other people.